Welcome to the CatFiveBoys podcast. I'm your host, Matt, and I'm here with my guest, Matt. Say hi.
Hi. Thanks for having me on the show.
Give the viewers a little bit about yourself, where you've come from, a little bit about your story that we're gonna get into later on in the episode.
My name is Matt Melvin. I live in Vermont. I wrote a book called Bullied Behind Bars: A Gay Christian Trump Supporter Goes to Prison. I'm a podcaster, author, activist.
All right, sounds good. Sounds good. We're definitely gonna get into the story of uh, of that when later on in the episode. Welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. First and foremost, thank you for being here. Thank you for spending your time listening to the Cat Five Boys podcast. Disclaimer: the views expressed on the show by the individual guests may not reflect the views of the Cat Five Boys podcast. Further disclaimer: the topics that we speak on at times can be a little bit dark, a little bit deep. If that's not your thing, then this might not be the show for you. We have clips. If you can't catch the full shows and you want to get a little bit of some of the best bits of each episode, feel free to check out the our TikTok account where we post clips on there. We post clips on our Instagram account, and if you're watching on YouTube, we have clips on YouTube Shorts. If you want to check that out as well. All those links are at Cat5Boys, the same way we're spelled in every single one of our social media platforms. If you want to be a guest on the show, we would love to have you. You want to speak about certain topics. Maybe you disagree with some of my positions. Maybe you disagree with the fact that I think that women shouldn't be able to vote. Maybe you disagree with the fact that I don't know. I was gonna say that Maddie thinks that cops are bad for stopping people for speeding, but he's no longer a host in this show, so can't say that anymore. But if you disagree with anything I have to say, or maybe you disagree with one of our previous guests and you want to have a formal debate with one of them, we can definitely schedule that as well. Maybe you just want to come on to talk about some random stuff. We would love to have you on. Just DM us on Instagram at Cat5Boys, and we will schedule you to be on as soon as it's most convenient for both parties. But we would love to have you. We would love to have everybody on. I love conversations. I love having debates, discussions with anybody and everybody. So make sure to make sure to subscribe on YouTube, follow us on Spotify, drop us a good rating on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Comment down below as well. Leave any sort of comment you want, even if it's some hate or anything like that. I don't care. Engagement is engagement. I mean, I don't know, whatever. I would love to see your guys' comments, respond to it in the next episode. If you have any disagreements or any sort of questions or anything like that, I would love to respond to it in the episode that's following that one. I stream on Twitch. That is Codename Soap is the name of it, but the link is going to be in the description down below. I stream on Twitch at least I try to stream on Twitch every single Saturday at around 6 p.m. Eastern time. We get into some TikTok invasions. We go into TikTok lives, and we absolutely demolish the ideologies of the opposition over there. It's a fun time. It's very it's very fun. It's very fun and funny at times as well. So go check that out as well. Every single Saturday at 6 p.m. We have a merch store. I don't really like to call it a merch store because it's a little bit more than just merch to me. We sell rosaries. So I'm a devout Catholic, and one of the aspects of my faith that is very strong is my devotion to the Blessed Virgin Mary. One of the things she provided for us was the rosary, and we sell those on the store. The link is down in the description. We have single decade rosaries. We have different types of rosaries. We're going to add more things as time goes on, and as interest continues to be shown for that. So thank you very much for even checking it out. You don't have to buy anything, but even if you check it out for a little bit, I appreciate it very, very much. With that being said, and without further ado, let's get started with the show. We're going to get started with some Reddits. We're going to go straight into the Reddit portion of the show today. We're going to start with a Reddit post coming in the dating advice subreddit. It's going to be, 31 male, lost my virginity to a great woman, but our life goals and future ideas are very different. I'm 31 and she's 42. Until this woman, I've had horrendous luck with others. I've easily been rejected hundreds and hundreds of times, and my whole family thought I was completely hopeless. Thing is, she's been married and divorced by a man who baby-trapped her. I I never intended this to be anything long term, just a first non-serious girlfriend type of thing, because she's 42 and I don't even think she intends on getting married anymore. Whereas I do want marriage one day. She doesn't want any more kids, even if she can have them, which I think she can. How should I go about this breakup? Any thoughts on that post?
My dating advice is always be direct, be honest, be upfront, don't hide anything. I think that deception never bodes well for either party. So, my advice would be telling her exactly what what you want out of life, your goals, and if her goals aren't in alignment with yours, then it's time to move on.
Yeah, I definitely agree. When it comes to relationships, I always kind of say a couple of the biggest things that you got to focus on when it comes to what you have in common. Because people like to say we have nothing in common. You know, commonalities are they're overrated. But some of the important ones that I would say is religion, faith, politics, and if you like each other, you know what I mean? Similar interests, I guess, when it comes to appearances. I mean, if you find her attractive, that's you're probably going to be with her, you know, and if she finds you attractive, she'll be with you. Otherwise, she probably won't. But religion and politics are big things. I always say that, and when it comes to life and how you're going to live your life and what you kind of want to do with your future, have kids, have a family, you know, and get married. If she's not into that and that's not the life she wants to live in the future, then yeah, it's probably a waste of time. It's probably a waste of time. Any further thoughts on that one?
I don't think so.
I always ask at the beginning of every show, and I completely forgot to ask you, what is your current relationship advice, if you don't mind sharing that?
What is my current relationship advice
I'm so
for?
sorry. Current relationship status. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm single.
Single? Okay. Um, How long have you been single?
A very, very long time. I
Okay.
have high standards, um, and I just have not found that special person to compliment me.
What are a little bit of your standards when it comes to dating?
Oh, I think it's important to have common interest. I would never date a liberal. I would have to date a conservative. He would have to. I don't believe in marriage. I believe marriage is between a man and a woman. So I have no interest in getting married. No interest in having kids, and I have no interest in having a codependent relationship. I believe that the strongest relationships are where both parties are independent.
Okay, okay. All right. So you'd have to feasibly find somebody who shares those ideals. Those are the ones that are most important to you, I would assume.
The person has to be pro-life. There's no question. They have to be a Christian. They have to be a conservative.
Okay. Would you say it's like, would you say it's a little difficult to find another man who meets all those? I mean, I would assume not, considering what you had said previously.
It is very hard to find somebody that fits all those criteria.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that. So we're gonna move on to the next Reddit post. It's gonna be coming from relationship advice. I am, or sorry, am I 30 female being stupid for letting my boyfriend 27 male sleep at mines all the time? Me, 30 female, and my boyfriend 27 male have been in a very beautiful relationship for almost 2 years. For me, it's about time we live together, but he still lives with his parents, comes from a very traditional Christian background, and is very, or sorry, and is saving to buy a property. I understand that, and I try not to put pressure on him. But it still comes up in conversations because I 100% know what I expect from this relationship. Most recently, I've been thinking that he comes to mine and stays. Oh, wait. Yeah, I've been thinking that he comes to mine and stays over 4 to 5 days a week, which I of course love and makes me happy. But am I making things too comfortable for him? It's like he has unlimited access to be with me, comes and leaves when he pleases, and pours so much energy and I pour so much energy and time towards the relationship, making me feel used, quote unquote. knowing that he hasn't fully committed and I'm giving him everything I have. If things continue this way, maybe he will never actually make plans to live together. I know for a fact that the idea isn't even in his brain at the moment. So obviously, no projections or plans for the future scares me. He said, "What if it takes him 2 more years?" I said, "Well, maybe not. Maybe we're not on the same page." He says that we have our whole life to be together and that there's no need to rush. He's never lived on his own, so I know it's also scary for him, but fuck my life. That's what being an adult is about. I feel like I'm a teenager in a I feel like I'm in a teenage relationship sometimes. I have told him no more staying over all the time, just a weekend, so I can focus more on my own goals. But he thinks that'll just make us drift apart. What do you think? What are your thoughts on that one? Initial thoughts.
Well, her partner has said that he's looking for property. So my guess is that he wants to build a life with her. It's so I think she needs to be patient. We all move at different paces. I know for me, if I found a partner, I would be of the same thinking as her boyfriend. I would be very slow to move in. I think when people play house too soon, it oftentimes causes the relationship to not work out. So I think the communication is clearly there. They clearly care about each other. He's coming over 4 to 5 times a week. So we know he's not with another person. We know he cares. He's doing everything he can. It's just his timing is different than her timing.
No, yeah, I definitely agree. I would say that kind of the way that they're kind of going about it is obviously not traditional, and it's not the best way to go about a relationship, especially one that's kind of centered around Christianity. But if I think people like to complicate things a little too much. If you guys like each other, if you guys are having plans to move forward together in life in the future and whatnot, and the future has both of you together in your plans, then stick it out. Things happen and they're going to continue to happen even when he finds that house, even when he moves in. If he were to move in, if he were to move in with her at some apartment, and he were to do what she wants, there would still be problems. There would still be something new that comes up, something new that there is to fight over or fight for, or whatever the case may be. So there's always going to be things that come up. Go over the hurdle. The next one's going to come soon. So go over that one when it comes, and go over the next one and the next one and the next one, and continue to be strong together, which will just make you stronger in the long run. So when it comes to this, staying over 4 to 5 days a week, to be honest, if she was my daughter, I wouldn't be, recommending that. But, people like to do what they like to do. And if I were to give them advice based off of where they are in the moment, just stick it out, be strong together. And then once he's able to afford that property, he's able to achieve that goal, get married, live your life in the Christian way that you guys apparently, are interested in living, and, move forward in life that way. Anything further to add there?
For me, I started doing men's work in 2022, and it's really transformed my life. So if you see yourself with this guy and you guys want to do couples therapy, you want to do your husband or boyfriend wants to do a men's weekend, you want to do a women's weekend. I think if you really want this relationship to work, both parties need to invest the time into getting it where you want to get the relationship to be. And look, every relationship takes work. No relationship is easy, whether it's a friendship, whether it's a romantic relationship. Every relationship takes an enormous amount of work, and I think it's all about the communication.
No, for sure, I agree. I think when it comes to relationships, though, I have a little bit of a different take. I feel like relationships, people are, especially in today's day and age, people are far too eager to be independent in relationships. And you were speaking on this before, that one of the criteria you're looking for is to have somebody who can be super independent, and be able to focus on their own goals and have goals to focus on. But I feel like when it comes to being in a relationship, you got to become one. In a marriage, two parties become one in this union. But when it comes to the independent nature of, I want to go, for example, girls, I want to go on a girls trip, or the boys want to go on a boys trip, or whatever the case. I don't think that exists anymore. You're in a relationship, you got to change the way you live, and that's just the reality of being in one. I've always seen it that way. I've always seen relationships as kind of like a life change, the same way as having a baby. You go from being able to, I guess, kind of in some way do whatever you want, being able to hang out with your friends, go whenever you want, come home at whatever time you want. You get into a relationship, things change. Especially if it's one centered around Christianity, you're definitely going to have more of a traditional outlook on things, and you're going to have goals that are shared within that relationship with your partner. And then when you have kids, same thing. Things change. Times where you could go out with your girlfriend or your wife, and you guys could go on a trip or something. You can't do that too much anymore because now you have children to take care of. So there's always life changes that happen. You got to be able to, if you're gonna get into a relationship, especially if you're a Christian, and you're going into a relationship with the Christian ideals behind it, you got to be able to change your life, and you got to be able to, you got to be open to that change. Otherwise, don't even waste your time in that regard, because otherwise you'll just be sinning, and we obviously should avoid that. But yeah.
Yeah, when I said independent, I mean I don't think that if you're in a relationship with someone else that you need to be together all the time. I think each person should have their own friends, have their if they're a man, they should have male friends. If they're a female, they should have female friends, and they need their friends to do activities with, and they should do activities together, and they should do activities separately, so that there's not the codependency aspect.
I agree for sure. Definitely, having friends in relationships, and obviously, I think the best way to do it is, the guy has his guy friends, and his guy friends know the guy's wife. And my best friend's gonna know my wife, and I'm gonna know his wife, and we're all we're gonna know each other. And then my wife is gonna have her female friends, and her female friends are gonna know me, and I'm gonna know them through her, whatever the case may be. But I had a question just based off of that. What are your thoughts on female, like, girls trips, where she says, what, I want to go with my girls, and I want to go to I don't know, to Cabo, Mexico or something for a week. I want to go on a girls trip. What do you think about that?
Yes.
For fun.
That's
For fun, yeah, for fun.
okay. So how would she feel if her partner decides he wants to go to Mexico or Vegas for a week? So I guess, are we on equal playing ground, or are the rules different for the female?
Let's just say that, for the sake of the hypothetical, she could not care less if her boyfriend were to go to Cabo for a week with his homies. Do you think it'll still be it what would be your thoughts on her going on a girls trip to Cabo for a week at that point?
I mean, we each make our own decisions. Everybody is entitled to make their own decisions.
All right. And would you think that the guy is being too controlling, or too maybe toxic or something, if he were to say, I don't want you to go to Cabo? She wants to go, and if he were to go, she doesn't care. She doesn't mind. But she wants to go. He does care. He goes, I don't want you to go to Cabo. I'm telling you, you cannot go to Cabo. Otherwise, I'm breaking up with you. Do you think that that would be toxic of him, or you think he'd be, that's a negative thing for him to do, or?
That's a tough question. I, you know, I guess it just depends on the trust. That if the two don't have a strong relationship, and and you know, it's probably not going to end well. And, but I guess I always come back to the fact of, what is the purpose of going to Mexico?
Okay, all right.
I mean, what can you do in Mexico that you can't do in the U.S.?
Yeah, let's just say, he asks her that. He goes, "Why do you want to go to Mexico of all places?" And she goes, "That's just where the girls want to go, and I want to have friends with my girls, and they want to go to Mexico because I don't know. They just want to. That's their destination, and they've all agreed to it except for me. Like, but at this point, I have to agree to it because they all did. So, I want to go. I just want to have fun.
She doesn't have to agree to it. It's her choice.
No, of course, but they decided on Mexico, and she wants to go because she wants to have fun. She wants to have fun with her friends, but the destination is Mexico. Um, you know, that's just kind of how it is. At that point, that's kind of her reasoning, as to why it's Mexico and not somewhere else. It's a tough one at the end of the day, yeah.
I don't know what the purpose to going to Mexico, so I'll come back to the fact that I don't really understand why the need to go to Mexico. Is it spring break? Is it to feel like a college student?
Probably, yeah. All right, well, yeah, no, I definitely would just have a very hard stance on that. You can't go, because I'm telling you, you can't go. And that's really it. I mean, the you know, going on trips like that, you got boys trips, you got girls trips. I don't know. I've always been. It's not a good thing for a relationship. But yeah. Any final thoughts on this, or ready to move on?
I'm ready to move on.
All right, sounds good. We're going to go into the final two Reddit posts for the Reddit section of the show. This one's going to be a political discussions one. It's going to be who will carry the torch of MAGA when Trump is gone. I feel like it's unclear what the right's succession plan is to continue the MAGA movement once Trump is out of the picture. Who, if anyone, could invigorate the MAGA base like Trump? That just doesn't appear to be clear at the moment. Is there expectation for J.D. Vance to pick up the torch? What are your thoughts on this?
Well, that's a good question. Before Charlie Kirk was shot, that's who I would have thought would carry the torch.
Oh yeah, R.I.P. Charlie Kirk. Forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah, Charlie Kirk was an amazing man, and clearly, in my opinion, should have been the next president of the United States.
I think that's what they were saying. Yeah, there was a lot of people close to him who were saying that, even though he had said multiple times that, he wasn't going to do it, they were saying that his trajectory in life, he was going to become president of the United States one day. And I think that's one of the things that hit me hard when the news came out, when everything was happening, when he got shot, and that was going all over Twitter. Is like one of the things that kind of came to my mind after in the aftermath of everything was, it would have been so cool, so interesting to see what a Charlie Kirk presidential administration would be like. And we got robbed of that amongst a whole other plethora of things we got robbed of, and he got robbed of, and his family got robbed of. But that would have been specifically interesting to see. And it sucks that he had to lose his life the way that he did.
I see Don Jr. I see Eric Trump perhaps carrying the torch. I also could see J.D. Vance carrying the torch. I agree with your viewer that there isn't a clear front runner, but I think that's a good thing. Obviously, with the number of attempts on the president and then the assassination of Charlie, I think it's a cautionary tale to not directly identify the next candidate or potential president for fear that that person might get killed by a left-wing lunatic.
Yeah, I've always had kind of the same thought when it comes to this question. It was always, I don't think it's going to matter. I don't really think the successor of Donald Trump is really going to matter when you look at the left and the general broad feelings that the American people have towards the left. People are starting to really wake up and see these people are crazy. These people are actually nuts, and all the people who they would elect and who the DNC would put up for that for the office of president of the United States, all those people are identified as the lunatics of the left, like you said. They're all identifiable, and the American people are going to see, okay, they're going to have AOC on there, they're going to have Chris Cuomo on there, they're going to have Hillary Clinton for a second time on there. Every single one of those people are going to be easily identifiable by the American people, and they're all going to think, this person's a fucking lunatic. Let's get the Republican on there. I don't give a shit who he is. Let's just get him on there because I'd rather have him than some crazy leftist scumbag who's going to go on there and win this election and become president of the United States. So I think ultimately it doesn't matter who carries the torch for Donald Trump. Um, what what really is going to decide this is, will the DNC put somebody who's not very known or not very polarizing in their on their ticket, or will they put somebody who everybody kind of expects to run and everybody knows is a actual crazy person? And I think it's going to be the latter because they don't really have the guts to put somebody new. They're going to put somebody that's already been there, and everybody knows those people are crazy. Nobody's going to vote for them. So
If the DNC were smart, they would put John Fetterman as their nominee.
I would tend to agree. The only thing I would say is he's not. I wouldn't say he's as well known as Don Trump Jr. or anybody who the RNC would even put up there. So when it comes
No,
to
I'm saying for the DNC, John Fetterman.
no, yeah, I know that's what I'm saying. Like whoever if they were to put him on there, and he would be going against any Republican potential candidate that I could even think of, I don't see him being able to have that sort of power politically or societally to move any sort of chain against any Republican I can even think of that would go on there and be the presidential candidate, who will carry the torch, so to speak, for Trump. I don't see him winning any of those. And then all the other popular DNC candidates that could possibly go on there, they're definitely not popular at all.
No, because the Democrats are the party of illegal immigration, transgender, sex changes, and lunatics that cannot put two words together that make any sense.
Yeah, they could never come up with coherent arguments. That's what it is. When it comes to
Let me give you an overview. This is the Democratic Party. So everything about the Democratic Party is victim, victimizer. This is the role they play. So there's never any cohesive argument because it's always blaming somebody else. The left, uh, their whole platform is it's always somebody else's fault. They blame everybody but themselves. And in the end, they have no policies that anyone would want to support, rally around. Any common sense person would never. Let's just say Minnesota. Who in their right mind would want to give a license to an illegal immigrant? Who in their right mind would want to give sex changes to transgender? Who in their right mind would want to protect child sex predators?
no, I agree. When it comes to the right versus the left, we've seen the political violence happening recently, especially after the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Just the constant the constant celebration of his death, the violence, the shooting at the ICE facility that happened, and all the different protests that have happened that have come out from the No Kings protests and whatnot. We saw it with the Black Lives Matter protests and how much they destroyed there and how many businesses they destroyed just on that riot itself. We've seen how dangerous and how violent the left can truly be. Um, and
And it's all funded from the George Soros machine.
Oh, 100%. A bunch of NGOs that are funding these riots, that are funding these movements. Black Lives Matter, funded by NGOs. Just a bunch of these movements that are funded, behind the scenes in order to try to sway the public into a certain way. It's wild. It truly is.
It's evil. It's satanic.
Oh, 100%, 100%.
I mean, who would want to vote for a party that runs around naked in Portland?
I saw that. I saw that. That was crazy. Yeah.
It's disgusting. I mean, the fact that anyone would want to do this, it's absolutely repulsive. Portland, I mean, I was in Portland many years ago. It has gone so far off the deep end that I don't know anybody in their right mind that would ever want to go to Portland. That whole section, Washington, Oregon, and California, really on the coast. Inland is fine, but the coast, they've just so radical. And you look at the people that are on the streets, they look like they're comatose, they're overdosed, they're naked, they're distressed, and they are not getting the help that they need because the governors are stealing all of the money that's supposed to go and help the homeless people for their own political agenda. They don't care. You know, you think Gavin Newsom cares about the homeless people. He doesn't care. And how is he able to pay for a $4 million house? The guy doesn't make anywhere near that. We know he's getting money from JB Pritzker.
Yeah, no, he's being funded too, and the simple fact is the Democrat Party is not the Democrat Party of old. You know, they've changed, they've radicalized to degrees that nobody really was aware of 4 years ago. Even, I mean, we saw Joe Biden get elected, and I think that was the straw that broke the camel's back when it came to the American people and the way they voted. I mean, just the sheer demographics of people who didn't vote, who voted in the Joe Biden election for him, and then didn't turn for the elections with Kamala Harris. Um, it was just astounding, and the amount of people who turned to Trump in that election as well. It's really clear to see the sentiments of the American people and how they're swaying right now. And let me just say, they're not swaying to the left. You know, that's what that is.
Right. Well, Skamala still will go on national television and tell people that the election was close. That is simply a delusion. It wasn't even remotely close. And I mean, how could you vote for a woman who is drunk almost 95% of the time?
Yeah, she lost that election. She started drinking wine after. I mean, yeah, no, it's wild. All right, well, let's get to the next and the final Reddit post here. Is the American population beginning to turn on Trump? It's kind of what we were just speaking on right now. Several prominent anti-Trump voices have recently publicly stated that they think that the nation has hit a turning point because of the recent events in the past week. Robert Reich expressed his views in a Substack article titled "The Sleeping Giant is Awakening." Reich argues that Trump's blatant authoritarian behavior over the course of a week, suing the New York Times, attacking reporters, cheering censorship, threatening to pull network licenses, and demanding prosecutions of rivals, has finally gone too far for many Americans. What? Just to put a pause on the post real quick. What are your thoughts on people? I don't know if you've ever had to debate somebody who has had this argument posed to you before. But if somebody says, or what would you say to somebody who would say that Trump is an authoritarian and he is, becoming more of a dictator?
They're delusional. The fact is that they only use this argument when it is convenient for them. You know, the Biden administration tried to bankrupt him. You know, many prosecutors, whether Alvin Bragg, Letitia James, they tried to bankrupt him. You know, the Trump administration spent $400 million defending their their name, their properties in these bogus lawsuits that were just malicious in intent, had no substantive value, and were absolutely worthless. And so now that he's trying to hold the people that came after him accountable, they want to scream and yell and protest. It's just pure hypocrisy.
No, yeah, I
So yes, Matt, the individuals that are responsible for the Trump raid on Mar-a-Lago, which was a joke. I mean, let's be frank. The way Roger Stone and James Comey were both charged with the same crime. Roger Stone was dragged out of his house by multiple agencies. Meanwhile, James Comey is able to go to court all on his own. So the pure hypocrisy of how two individuals that are charged with the same crime is just astounding. And the left never want to comment on Roger Stone or any of the Trump, Rudy Giuliani. They tried to bankrupt Rudy Giuliani as well. It's this common theme that it's okay if it's a Trump person, but if it's anybody else, it's not okay.
No, yeah, I completely see that. And when it was that time period when he was getting accused of all those different things, and he was going to court and everything, I remember that time. It was just you could tell it was the prosecution fishing for things to find on Trump as much as they could. They were just clawing at anything, throwing things at the wall, seeing what would stick. And the crazy thing was, none of it stuck. None of it stuck. None of it. Not a single thing. Um, and then what did he do after he became president of the United States? So, it's one of those things that you got to beat him. Everything's gonna take time. And it took time with Trump, but he got it done. And now he's doing what he's doing. Moving on towards a little bit of his administration. What are your thoughts on the tariffs and the effects that has had on the American economy?
I think tariffs are a great thing. Without it, we would probably be bankrupt. China and some of these other countries have been taking advantage of the American people for a long, long time. And it's time that we took our country back and started charging tariffs to foreign countries. Period.
I agree. That's the way we made our money back in the in the early periods of the United States of America, and far beyond actually. We've only started with taxes, at least extraordinary amounts of taxes, fairly recently, at least in the grand scheme of the entirety of the history of the United States. But no, tariffs I've always seen as a good thing. It's always had some sort of negative connotation to it. Growing up, I would be taught that in schools, and it would always be this negative connotation, this act of war for a country to tariff another country. But that's just how countries made money, and that's how countries, kind of make their people richer and their citizens richer, and they have their own leverages for doing that. And Trump is using the leverage that the United States of America has, being the greatest nation in the world, and using that leverage to tariff other countries, and in order for the economy of the United States to become better. And to be honest with you, I think it's been going great so far. I think it's been going great so far.
I
With
agree.
with that being said, we are done with the Reddit post for today. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed that. I was very interested to hear the opinions of Matt and going through all these different topics. Now, I kind of want to move on into a little bit of more of a tailored topic here. I wanted you to speak a little bit about your book. What is it about? The title, kind of a little bit of an overview, but also going a little bit in depth as much as you can without obviously revealing everything. Um, just kind of give your story to the people as well.
My story is all about how I went through the judicial system, how I was mistreated, how I was targeted by a former police chief, Shelburne Aaron Noble, who didn't like me, claimed that I tried to run him over, made a lot of things up, and then I mean, I did work. I worked at a car dealership in 2004. They didn't pay me my commissions. I took matters into my own hands and I tried to sell one of their cars. No question. I didn't. I shouldn't have done that. I broke the law. Um, I have autism and I'm on the Asperger's spectrum. And Judge Jeffrey Crawford and Bob Wolford decided I didn't meet the criteria to be in the mental health court, even though I have that diagnosis, and I've seen mental health therapists my entire life. So instead of going through the mental health court, where if I completed the program, I may not have a record today, I went through the regular court. When I came out, I couldn't pass a background check, so I used other people's information. I was about 2009. I got out of jail in 2005. And then the government pursued me for 6 years. Finally got an indictment after spending about $500,000 going to 6 grand juries. And then I spent 18 months in federal prison. I went to 10 different facilities. And I wrote my book because I wanted to share my story about going through the criminal justice system and how awful it is. And, coming out on the other side, finding God and finding an amazing pastor. And I don't think I would have my faith as strong today if I didn't go through the pains and perils of the judicial system.
Sounds good. Sounds good. My dog is barking. Okay. Um, Give me 1 second here. I apologize. Give me 1 second. All right. Yeah. So moving on to I kind of want you to touch a little bit more in depth on the car theft story, kind of what happened there, and kind of what was the I mean, I suppose play by play of that situation.
Well, I just mentioned it. I worked at a car dealership. They didn't pay me my commission, so I took matters into my own hands and tried to sell one of their cars. Got caught, got arrested, and spent 18 months that time too. That case, Judge Jeffrey Crawford was the judge on that case. Jeffrey Crawford was the case on the federal case as well. So, I don't think there's too many defendants that have had two cases, one in the state, one in the federal, that had both of the same had the same judge in the case.
Muted. Would you say that that's kind of like the main reason why you would make the claim that they treated you unfairly because, and you said that they treated you unfairly because you were gay or because you were a conservative? What was it? What was the reason again?
They targeted me because, Aaron Noble, the former chief of police, didn't like me. He manufactured all this fake stuff that I tried to run him off the road. And he ended up getting a $200,000 payout from the town of Shelburne in 2022 to just go away. He never went to any of the board meetings. He wouldn't turn his camera on Zoom. And I think he had an alcohol problem. He's no longer the Shelburne police chief. So, why is he getting a $200,000 payout?
Yeah, yeah. Do you think that they inflated your sentence?
No question. Absolutely.
What was the sentence that they gave you?
18 months.
18 months. What is the usual sentence or the general sentence for
Well,
something like that?
put it this way. My attorney, who has 30 years of experience, has never heard of a individual getting charged with what I got charged when the government had the victim, or lack thereof. There was no financial loss. He's never even heard of that in a financial crime, that there was no financial loss. There was no victim impact story. I don't even know why the government even wasted their time on something so frivolous, quite frankly.
Okay, okay. What was your, and I wanted to ask, if you're not comfortable with speaking on this, that's completely fine. What is, or what was your experience like in prison, and what can you speak on when it comes to what you experienced during that time?
It was absolutely horrific. I went to 10 different facilities. I was raped by an Aryan Brotherhood as an initiation ceremony to get into the uh, gang. At another facility, the inmates told the guards I tried to proposition them. They put me in solitary confinement. I called my brother and told him what was going on. My brother told me on the phone he would take care of it. Next thing you know, the same two individuals that arrested me John Schrouder from IRS and Mei Chow from Secret Service showed up at my brother's place of work and threatened him. I mean, this is the lengths that these individuals will go to silence somebody.
And you said you were moved to 10 different facilities in the span of 18 months?
I was, yeah. I kept writing a lot of grievances, holding these people accountable. At one of the facilities, the guards refused to give me my medication, took me out of my cell, brought me to the attorney-client room, surrounded me with 5 guards, including the superintendent. They had their cameras on, and they wanted to know what my end game to writing all these grievances. They had this delusion that I was just writing grievances as a get out of jail for free. That's not how it works. No inmate gets out of jail for free unless they go out in a body bag.
All right. Okay. So I just have a question. I have another question here. You said that you volunteered for Trump in his administration in 2016. What was that like, and what was kind of your role in that regard?
I was knocking on doors. It was an amazing experience. I loved going to Hillary supporters' houses. That was my favorite because the folks had nothing to stand on. They had no reason to support her. They were just anti-Trump. My favorite experience is to running into a Hillary campaigner who had a clipboard, and I asked her, Hillary had 13 cell phones. How come you couldn't get an app on your phone? And she was speechless and ran the other way.
Yeah, it's definitely awesome to be able um, to stump the leftists. To give them an argument and they have no response. It's definitely a good feeling. So you were, when it comes to your volunteership for the Trump administration, it was kind of knocking on doors, asking for people or telling people to go out and vote, and that kind of a thing.
Going to rallies, I went hosted a couple of rallies. It was really, really fun. I'll give you a quick story. At one of the rallies, I was actually outside, uh, and I had a newspaper that said he was acquitted. And the left wing lunatics called the police and told them that acting uh, I was acting disorderly, and they ended up removing me, asking me to leave the premises. So I've seen what the tactics the left will use to try to gain advantage. They will do everything possible. They're dishonest, they're liars, they are incapable of telling the truth, and they blame everybody else.
Yeah, no, for sure. Just the disparity between the left and the right when it comes to political violence. If it wasn't apparent before, it most certainly is apparent now. The left far more political violence than the right. Um, it's honestly kind of astounding that now, if you want to go out and you want to do political um, engagement, I suppose, or you want to go out, you want to do something like Charlie Kirk did when he was going out talking to college students and debating them in public, and telling them, let's have a conversation about our disagreements. You could feasibly be murdered for something like that, and yeah, and they will celebrate it. They will be joyful that another person who is in favor of fascism, according to them, is in the ground, and they will celebrate it, and they will cheer, and they will clap, and they will scream, joyfully, at your demise. It's definitely something that I think people, especially conservatives, need to wake up in this regard, knowing that this is what they think, this is what they this is the true colors of the left, truly. So it's definitely one of those things. So many stories of conservatives getting violently kicked out of events and speaking places and whatnot. Happens all the time. Any further thoughts on that?
It's just really scary that as a conservative, you have to worry about your safety. I mean, we saw it many, many times with Charlie, with Riley Gaines, because of the left-wing induced people that they're funding to do this stuff. You have to now be concerned. You look at Nick Sorter, what happened in Portland, where he was almost killed by a left-wing lunatic. And then he gets charged with disorderly conduct. He goes to court and they drop the charge as soon as his attorney asks for discovery. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. It's very clear that Antifa has ties to the Portland police. Just like in Dearborn, Michigan, after all that violence and the police chief actually praising Muhammad. I mean, the states that are having the most violence are Michigan, Oregon, Washington, California, New York, where Antifa is very strong and they're funding. We don't, you know, every Saturday they have their No Kings protest on Shelburne Road in front of Burger King, and it's always men and women over 50, white. I've never seen anybody of any minority. And I can at least have a conversation with them and not have to fear about my safety. In other parts of the country, it's not like that.
100%. I'm thinking, and I haven't really spoken about this on the show, but I'm thinking about very carefully, because this is something that nowadays we got to think about very carefully. Going to different places, different universities in Miami and the Miami area, because that's where I'm from, in South Florida, and asking questions. Questions about abortion, questions about immigration, questions about transgenderism. All these different ideologies that the left shares. Asking them questions about it, seeing what their thoughts are, and engaging in conversations about it. But you got to be careful nowadays, and it's things where anything could really happen, and I truly want to see, and I'm truly interested in knowing what the tolerance level in the South Florida area would be to these questions. Very, very interested at that point. But yeah, that's one thing that I'm thinking about. But it's very difficult to gauge the level of safety that you need to have in certain events like this.
I mean, who knew what would have happened to Charlie Kirk in the state of Utah? I mean, that is not where I would have thought that something like this would have happened.
No, I completely
Not
agree.
in a million years.
No, I completely agree. It's Utah, out of everywhere, he was going on a whole tour to different colleges. Utah was one of those places. I did not expect anything like this to happen, and it happened, which just goes to show that you really can't be safe anywhere. Really can't be safe anywhere.
And I don't know if you've talked about this, but let's just talk quickly about the conspiracy theories that Candace Owens has spread and how her accounts have grown exponentially as a result of her spreading these fake conspiracy theories.
Oh, that's one thing that really irked me towards in the aftermath of his assassination, is all the conspiracy theories that came out. Oh, this guy in the crowd was making some weird hand signals and he's the actual shooter, or this other person who was his bodyguard wasn't really his bodyguard, he was this person. It was so many conspiracy theories, and now she's coming with the conspiracy theories, some of them about bumblebees, crazy stuff that she's talking about now, that truthfully it just pisses me off. The man died. It was a political assassination, and we're talking about Israel. We're talking about the Jews. This is what we're talking about right now, that they were involved here. When Charlie Kirk, for all intents and purposes, was a big supporter of Israel, a big supporter of Netanyahu, a big supporter of the Jews in that regard. He was one of their biggest political, societal movers, and her claim is that they offed their biggest mover in American the American sentiments on Israel and their own the things that were going on in their area. It made no sense, and she's just spouting this stuff, and it's honestly kind of infuriating.
She's just doing it so she gets more viewership.
100%. That's what she's been doing for a while. And to be honest, truly makes me sad as a Catholic to have her be kind of the representation of that for to some regard, because there's other Catholics who are conservative voices. We got Michael Knowles, we got Matt Walsh. Those guys are good. But to have Candace Owens be one of those, and one of the biggest ones, might I add, she's definitely been a little bit off her rocker for a while. She's been making crazy accusations with really no evidence. She just kind of says things, on her show, and believe it, because there was a video of somebody doing this with their shirt or something. Like, it's just unfounded, crazy. Any further comments on that, or would you like to move on?
Just, folks, before you believe something, get the evidence, follow the money. It's very easy to go off on conspiracy theories or to trust what somebody says, but without facts, it's just judgment.
Yeah, and I think for sure people, especially today, I've seen it, like, conspiracy theories have always been a thing that have been popular. It's been popular for a long time. Aliens, 9/11, all these different conspiracy, the moon landing, all these different conspiracy theories. They've been here for a long time. But nowadays, it feels like people are taking these theories, and instead of viewing them how they are, theories, conspiracy theories, they're viewing them as fact off the rip, because it's fun to think about. It's fun to think that, the moon landing was faked. Therefore, it was obviously faked. What's your evidence for that? Oh, I don't have any. I just, you see these pictures, the flag isn't flapping. It's like, listen, theories are theories. They're called conspiracy theories for a reason, and just for you to hear that and go, no, I believe it, and it's true. Therefore, it's true. It's like, you believe something. That's fine. That doesn't make it true, you know. But people go off and act like it's true, and then form their political opinions and vote in a certain way that's based off of those opinions. It's definitely a crazy way our society's moving towards. All right, moving on towards another thing. I wanted to have a conversation a little bit about, kind of a little bit towards the theological area. You said you're a Christian. What denomination of Christian do you identify with?
I don't identify with any certain denomination. I just know that Jesus Christ is my Lord, my Savior, and He came to save each and every one of us. And until I recognize that I'm a sinner saved by grace, and that Jesus sent His only begotten Son to take away the sins of the world, I was just living for myself and the pleasures of the world. But now I have a Lord and Savior that I report to. So everything I do is supposed to exemplify Him.
Okay, okay. And you describe yourself as a gay Christian Trump supporter. I was just wondering, how would you say that the gay Christian part is a little bit of an oxymoron? They kind of don't really coexist together very well, or how would you see that?
I say they coexist. There are people out there that have an issue with it, but you never hear people spouting off about individuals that claim that they're Christians and are covered in tattoos. That is very clearly stated in Leviticus that it's against God's law to have tattoos or piercings, as well as in Isaiah 42:19.
Okay, and do you think that being gay is against God's law, or would you say that you don't think so?
No, I don't.
No? Okay. So then when it comes to the tattoo part, you would say that that is against God's law, but you would say that being gay is not against God's law. Would you say that would you agree that there are Bible verses, there are places in the Bible where it condemns homosexuality?
Yes, there are, but that's all from it's not in red. It's not actually Jesus speaking that. That is somebody's interpretation.
Wouldn't you say that the Levitical laws aren't also Jesus speaking that?
Correct.
So then the Levitical laws apply, would you say? Would you agree with that?
Yes.
But those other ones about homosexuality wouldn't, in your worldview?
I think that anybody can be gay. It's the act of sex outside of marriage that is the sin.
I agree. I agree for sure. I think that I would definitely agree with that. Sex outside of marriage, in every regard, is is a sin for sure. Would you say that homosexual sex intrinsically is a sin, regardless of how you spin it?
It is.
Okay. Um, would you say that homosexual relationships are also in the same way? Romantic relationships, I should add. Romantic relationships. No? You wouldn't say so?
Not. I wouldn't.
Okay, okay. Um, well, that's kind of the question I would have there when it comes to the theological aspect of it. I don't know if you had anything else to add when it comes to that. Any?
Well, I was born gay. I mean, you can't, these mythological theories of converting somebody to somebody that they aren't is really would be intrinsically evil. It's not of God to force a something down somebody's throat that is not of God. Conversion therapy is witchcraft. It's evil. It's satanic, and it doesn't work. Look, I know many people that are married to women that are really gay because they want to come off or show the world that there's somebody um, that they're really not, and they're living a lie. You know how many married men are on dating websites? It's unbelievable because of the condemnation towards the homosexual community by the so-called Christians that are only interested in a certain type of Christian. I have a friend that when he was living with a woman and cheating on her, all of his friends, Christian friends, didn't want to be friends with him. But now that he's married, all of his Christian friends are now friends with him because he's in this box.
Wouldn't you say that? Wouldn't you say that that would be prudentially kind of correct in order to uphold some sort of values that you have for your life or have for your ethics and moral worldview? Would be to disassociate yourself with somebody like that. For example, if you thought it was morally abhorrent for somebody to celebrate Charlie Kirk's death, and you had a friend who celebrated it and was gleeful about it, I would assume that you would stop being friends with him.
Absolutely, no question.
I, in the same vein, believe that, and I think a lot of people in the Christian faith believe the same thing, that it is a an abomination, as said in Scripture, for homosexual acts to be a thing, or for adultery to be a thing as well, for people to do. And so, if somebody were to do it and do it gleefully, or be okay with that type of behavior, and be tolerant to that type of behavior, I would distance myself from somebody of that nature as well, because of the prudential fact that being close to somebody like that, having a relationship with somebody like that, is in a lot of ways having a relationship with somebody who's doing a lot of evil, who's doing evil things in their life, like, for example, celebrating Charlie Kirk's death. So I would say that that's actually a prudentially good thing to do, or right thing to do.
Well, we can agree to disagree. I
Okay. All right.
I wasn't speaking about, somebody who celebrated Charlie Kirk. All I was saying was that, you know, a lot of times we want to try to create this utopia worldview, and it's just not always possible. We all make mistakes, we all have our flaws. There's only one perfect person, and that's Jesus Christ.
All right, all right. Well, I believe Mary was sinless as well, but that's just a whole nother conversation. When it comes to that, I would definitely like to add on. We all do fall short of the glory of God, and we all fall short of His expectation for us to be perfect and to go and sin no more. That's definitely something that's true, and I've experienced that a lot in my life, 100%. Failing and falling short of His expectations, and it's definitely provided me with a lot of shame. But one thing that it is not done for me is have me be claiming that that is okay, that the stuff that I'm doing wrong is okay. And I think that's the difference. Is if you were happy, for example, just an example, if you were gleeful of Charlie Kirk's assassination and you were unapologetic about it, that's that's really, it's really just evil at that point. And that's something that we just cannot, at least for me, I wouldn't be able to stand, with being close to somebody who has that sort of gleefulness to somebody else's demise in that way. Um,
I agree.
yeah, but if, for example, I had a friend who was a Democrat, and that friend was very, he had conflicting feelings about it, but something inside of him made him feel like he was actually kind of happy that Charlie Kirk was dead, but he felt very conflicted about that, and he felt very guilty and shameful about that feeling. I would say that that's a good thing, that he felt shameful about it, that he felt guilty about it, that he had some sort of repentfulness in his heart towards that emotion that he had in that regard. I think there's a little bit of a distinction in that regard, though. But either way. Um,
Well, David sinned, but many, many times, but he was always quick to repent. So it's really about being when I sin, I'm quick to repent. I shouldn't need somebody to call my attention to my sin. I should know, if I'm a Christian, when I am sinning and when I'm not sinning. It shouldn't be a mystery if I'm sinning or not. I know whether I'm sinning or not. It's a hot heart posture, but I know that if I'm sinning, I feel guilt, and then I have to quickly repent.
yeah, I think I would definitely disagree with that. I think people are a really good tool, or a really good mechanism to acknowledge your sins. And I think that's a big reason why in the Catholic Church we confess our sins to a priest, is because human beings are a very good method of acknowledging our sins, understanding our sins, because not everybody, and I think we see this a lot of times, people call themselves Christian, left and right. We see people call themselves Christians all the time and support things like abortion or support things like transgender, therapy to children, things like this. And that's obviously completely against the Christian worldview. We see people call
Right.
themselves Christian all the time while still having those beliefs. We definitely need people to be like, hey, yeah, you need to reevaluate what your understanding of theology, what your understanding of the Bible, and what Christ taught and what Christ preached, um, what that is. Because we definitely need to update that, because the way that you're interpreting Scripture, the way that you see this particular, you know, issue, in this case abortion, for example, yeah, it's definitely against the Bible. It's definitely against Christianity. So that's definitely one thing I would say.
Well, if you're not in the Word daily, you're going to be out of touch with what God's Word says. I think, for me today, I study the Bible for hours on end. I'm praying. I'm talking with other believers about the Bible. Before you know, I was a lukewarm Christian, and I was just showing up on Sunday to check a box, and then I was going back to my old ways every other day of the week. And Christianity and the walk with Jesus is a 24/7 365 journey. And it's very, very challenging. And unless you have fellow believers in your life to help you, you're going to stumble.
Okay, yeah, I definitely see that. Um, is there anything else you would like to add when it comes to the theological aspect of the conversation? Any sort of disagreements you may have with me from what you've heard or anything like that, or would you like to move on?
We can move on.
All right, sounds good. Sounds good. Is there anything before we close out the show? Is there anything specifically you would like to touch on? Anything you would like to speak on that we haven't spoken on already? I think I'm pretty much done with my show notes. Is there anything specifically you'd like to touch on?
You know, it goes back to Stephen Covey's seek first to understand, then to be understood, sharpening the saw. You know, all of these principles that Stephen Covey spoke about are really invaluable life lessons for me.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that, 100%. Sounds good. Sounds good. Is there anything else, or
That's
that's
it.
all right? Sounds good. Beautiful. Um, with that being said, thank you very much for watching. We appreciate every single one of you who stuck around and listened to the show, spent your time here with us. You could have spent it anywhere else and doing anything else imaginable, but you spent it here with us right now. A little bit of something I wanted to touch on before we finished off. I wanted to speak on the current status of the show and the current I guess, situation when it comes to the co-hosts. So we're going to implement a couple of ideas in the future when it comes to the show. We don't have a co-host at the moment. We had Maddie, who was on before, and he was on for a lot of episodes, and he was really good about being on the show every single time. And you know, we love Maddie here, and Maddie was always a good guy. He's always a really great dude. But things have come into his life that, you know, further responsibilities that have stopped him from being able to participate in the show. And we obviously understand that, and we understand where he's coming from in that regard. And we wish him the best. It wasn't, he's not. It wasn't a negative, move, stepping away from the show or anything like that. He has responsibilities that he needs to attend to, and it takes him away from the show. So he won't be coming back. Obviously, George was gone for a while before him. So it's just going to be me for now. We're going to implement some new things. We're going to bring on some new faces on the show, and we're gonna see how this goes, and we're going to try to expand it. We're going to try to have fun with it. So hopefully you guys can stick around for that. Everybody who came back from my pause, because I was not doing the show for a little while, figuring some things out, lack of motivation, a lot of different things. Everybody who came back to watching the show after that, break that I took, I really, really appreciate you very, very much. And if you are coming back, leave it in the comment section down below and let me know that you're coming back, and that you're still here from, before the break, because I want to thank you, one-on-one in the comment section. So either way, I appreciate it very, very much. And hopefully the future of the show is going to look bright. I'm going to make sure that we switch things up and we have some good things coming in the future, some fun things. I already kind of mentioned a little bit in the show as well in this episode. We're going to try and go do some public interviews and things like that. We're going to have to be very careful with it now, though. It's it's not looking too good for the conservatives out here. But you got to be strong. We got to be steadfast in our beliefs, and I don't really like to repeat it because it is Andrew Wilson, and Andrew Wilson is a little bit, he's a little bit of something, but not one step back. Not one step back. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Disclaimer, the views expressed on this on the podcast by the individual guests may not reflect the views of the CatFiveBoys podcast. Further disclaimer, the topics that we speak on can get a little bit dark, can get a little bit deep. If that's not your thing, this might not be the show for you, so, just keep that in mind. If you can't catch the full shows and you want to get some of the best bits, feel free to check out our clips accounts. We post clips on Instagram. We post clips on TikTok. And if you're watching here on YouTube, we have clips on YouTube as well, YouTube Shorts. You can check all those out. All of our social media accounts are at CatFiveBoys, the same way it's spelled in every single place that you might be looking at. If you want to be a guest on the show, we would love to have you on the show. Just simply send us a DM on Instagram letting us know a little bit about yourself, just a little quick rundown, and a little thing about what you'd like to talk about. We would love to have you on, talk about anything you'd like. If you have a disagreement with me, maybe you disagree that I believe that women should not have the right to vote, or maybe you disagree with me that the Catholic Church is the church established by Jesus Christ. Who knows? Maybe you disagree over certain things. Who knows what you may disagree about? And you want to iron those out on the show. We'd love to have you on, have a discussion about it. If you just want to have a conversation about something cool that's happening in your life, would love to talk to you about that as well. But either way, send us a DM on Instagram at CatFiveBoys, and we'll get you on the show as soon as convenient for the both parties. Make sure to like, make sure to subscribe. Drop the comments. We love the comments. We love engaging with you guys whenever there are comments. We love to speak on disagreements, whatever the case may be. And if there are any comments that have disagreements or anything like that, any concerns, criticisms, I'll touch on it in the following show. That's following whenever the comment was left. We post every single Wednesdays and Fridays, or at the very least, we're going to try to. Every single Wednesdays and Fridays. I stream on Twitch every single Saturday. At least I try to. The link to that will be in the description as well. Merch store. We have a merch store. We sell rosaries on there. I don't like to call it merch, but it is what it is. Merch store down in the description as well. We're going to be adding more things to that as interest grows for that. Even if you just check it out for a little bit, that would be greatly appreciated. Is there anything you would like to shout out before we close out the show?
Yes, if your viewers want to follow me on Instagram, it's Bullied Behind Bars. X, it's Bars Bullied. Facebook, Matthew.melvin.5621. Email me, bulliedbehindbars@gmail.com. And my book is available on Amazon. And my website is bulliedbehindbars.com.
Sounds good. And the book title is Bullied Behind Bars as well?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you very much, Matt, for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. It was a great conversation to have with you, and hopefully maybe sometime in the future we can have you on again. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Have a great night. And everybody watching, have a phenomenal night. God bless.